So next up, the one, the only, the inimitable, incredible presenter, red teamer, just all round cool guy, great human being as well. Fuzzy Knob, Josh Schwartz. His talk title is, I want to make sure I get this right, Business Tradecraft for Hackers in the Corporate Industrial Complex. And, you know, as I said at the head of the conference, you know, a lot of this, there's technical components to the talks, there's technical talks, there's talks that are focused on career development and you know, your ability to actually operate and level up your skills and your ability to earn, your ability to operate professionally as a hacker. And I think this talk sort of sits right in the middle of those two things. So Josh is, he works with the Paranoids. He's the director of proactive security engagement, doing red teaming, security engagement, phishing, behavioral engineering. He does all sorts of nasty things with computers and with people as they use computers, and that's why we love him. So I'm going to hand it off to Josh.
Hello. Thanks for that. Man, that was a great introduction. I hope I can live up to it. If everyone sees a big blank black screen, then I think we're good to go. Yeah, is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, confirmed on our end.
Great. So, you know, for all of us in the beginning here, there is nothing, right? No skills, no curiosity, no existence. There is nothing. That is what you are seeing now. But then from this nothing, there is something. You make something with maybe whatever's in front of you. Maybe it's a spark of curiosity, some imagination, some passion for something. It's maybe not great, it's something, and maybe it's your special thing. But if you can make something from nothing, perhaps you can make something of yourself. Because you're a hacker, right? You like doing hacker stuff. You do hacker stuff. You learn, you glide, you hack. And suddenly, you know how to computer. You've got a bunch of skills. You can't stop all the downloading, but people suddenly want to pay you to do this hacker stuff. And they want to pay you to keep learning, to keep growing, to keep doing hacker stuff. And you get a job. You get paid to do hacker stuff. Congratulations. You're now a cybersecurity professional. How great is that? Welcome. You are now part of the corporate industrial machine. And you are a tiny, trivially replaceable cog in an endless, indifferent system that owes you absolutely nothing. Great, right? You must feel very special and important right now in this moment of triumph. Of course, I know that we all have our own unique starting points. I know a lot of you are in the bug bounty world. Some of you maybe are in corporations. We all have our own unique trajectories, and we all have different destinations we're trying to get to, and we experience a unique path. And to think that everyone's path is the same, it definitely isn't, even though we all call ourselves the same thing, hackers. And while we share many things in common, we have this unique journey, right? So for me, I went from playing video games and cheating at video games on a farm in the middle of nowhere to buying a one-way ticket to Ukraine before I even graduated high school, and then coming back and working in IT. I got a computer science degree somewhere along the way. I landed at a job doing incident response on the blue side, not where I wanted to be. Eventually, I switched to red teaming at that old Hawaiian cloud factory. I became a manager, became director of the red team. I got fired. That was awesome. Then I became director of a red team again. I went back for more of it because I care about it, because I'm passionate about it. And I got to build a team of amazing people. I got to do things that I really wanted to do, even beyond red teaming. And I got to do all of this despite being a tiny cog in an endless, indifferent machine. Which brings me here to the now first slide of this presentation, Business Tradecraft for Hackers in the Corporate Industrial Complex. This is a career slide deck. This is about how to navigate these things in the business world if you want to go into them, because I don't know what your experience is, but no one trained me for any of these things I needed to know, and everyone just expected me to know them. So we're gonna talk about a few things. some subjects like living off the land, how to look professional even if you really aren't. I'll teach you some tricks to influence without authority and what influence without authority actually means. We'll talk about empire building, if you've ever heard that. We'll talk about climbing the corporate ladder. And I'm going to just share with you the things that I found most effective in navigating this big corporate space while still trying to hold on to my soul as a hacker, even while becoming a corporate sellout. So the first topic, living off the land, right? I would expect most candidates interviewing for a red team role, and probably most of you kind of heard this before. It's this idea that when we get inside an environment, we're not going to drop like all our cool script kiddie hacking tools onto a box. We're not going to be dropping Nmap and a bunch of stuff, because that's exactly what we've trained systems over time to detect against. So if you want to go undetected, which you have to if you're operating against a live environment and you want to stay in there, you need to use the tools that are already there. You can't drop new binaries and things. So this applies also to your career. You get dropped into a new system, a new place. You want to use the tools that are already there. Don't try and reinvent all of them. This is going to sound like the most boring advice ever, but read the employee handbook. If you ever get a job anywhere, go and read the employee handbook. Just like you read the manual for a system that maybe you've never been, that you've never seen before, you've never used before. You want to read the manual for the system that you're a part of, a corporation. Because if you want to cheat at being inside that corporation, you're going to need to know how it works. The other thing, you're going to want to read the expense report policy. One of the most boring and uninteresting documents out there. It shows you what you can get the company and how to get the company to pay for your shit. You will want to do that. Additionally, if you want to look good in the company, you want to look like you fit in, and maybe you probably don't, right? If you've gone from offensive security, hacking on the outside of the perimeter, maybe you're a bug bounty researcher, and then you go to the inside, you probably don't fit in with the regular corporate culture there. Everyone around you is trying to build things, everyone around you is trying to make stuff better, launch projects, and all you want to do is find the brightest burning dumpster fire wherever it might be. People don't like that, right? So you're going to want to fit in as much as you possibly can. One way you can do that is brand assets and company templates, which brings me to my second tip here. You want to look professional, even if you really aren't. I've been doing it for 10 years, it's been working great. So it's more than just wearing a blazer and a collared shirt, although that certainly doesn't hurt. But you want to make yourself look good in the written and visual things that you make. And I think you guys can agree. I don't have an ability to do a show of hands right now, but I think you can agree my slides look pretty dope, right? Now, you might be surprised to learn that this is actually my corporate slide deck template. And I'm not using it exactly the way it's supposed to be used, but there's certain things that you get and it allows you to blend in with the corporate culture because you're using a template. Almost every company will have a template. You should use this because it's an easy way to make you look like you belong. If for some reason you're like, I'm not in a corporation, right? There are templates out there and you can find them. But my corporate slide deck template kind of looks like this. It's basically an instruction manual on how to fit it. I also made all these slides in 48 hours a couple months ago, so it actually makes things pretty quick. So what you don't want to do is just use the default like Google slide template, the default PowerPoint template. It's kind of lazy. It's generic. It makes you look generic. I know that it kind of feels weird to try and invest yourself in like making things look good because you're like, oh, I'm really technical, I'm really smart, and my work should stand for itself. But the work is only as good as how you present it, right? Because you have to convince other people that the work you do is valuable, and one of the packaging is part of it here. And you don't want your packaging to kind of look like the default Java show input dialog box. You want it to look good. So if you can't find it and you're in an internal company, search your intranet, right? If you're struggling with that, right, you're a hacker, right? Come on. So use OSINT. Figure out who runs the brand in your company. Figure out who might have these things. And if all else fails, do crime, of course. Perhaps there's some slide decks out there that look really great in your organization. Copy it. If you copy a slide deck template, you inherit that theme. So even if there isn't a template or a theme for you to use, just steal someone else's and make it your own, perhaps. But don't start from scratch and don't start from a vanilla ice cream cone. So speaking of things that work well, this slide you saw 2 slides ago is one of my favorite slide layout templates. And I grabbed this from my corporate template. Most corporate templates will have this, but this is kind of a universal way to present information, far superior to the headline with many little bullets here, but it's 3 icons, text underneath, right? So you get 3 pictures that kind of represent things you care about, and then you put a bold headline underneath it, and then a little bit of text. And this can allow you to present information in an easily digestible form of 3s. It's also possible to do this with 5, right? However, that being said, these types of templates, you don't want to overuse them, right? They might be a secret weapon to get big points across, but if you do this for every single slide, people catch on to your tricks there. It's good when it's part of a template, but it's easy to create. If not, I could probably give you an entire hour-long presentation on how to use Google Slides very, very fancily, because those are the skills you gain when you become a corporate sellout. But I won't bother you with that anymore. And right now, you're probably saying, wow, I'm learning and I'm having fun. Well, I got another one for you, actually. If you want to use memes and funny pictures and stuff in an official-looking slide template, this slide is a big statement slide. What you do is you take a picture and you make it a whole size and you put one word on it. Now, if you're like, yes, I got this from Google Images, this is not a royalty-free stock photo. If you really want to play by the rules, you can find free stock photos that you're allowed to use, right? And Pixabay is one site for that. Unsplash is another. If you want really high quality things to put on the background of a slide to really make your point so that you can have something there while you're talking about your work, so that the attention is on you rather than on what the slide is about. So you might be thinking, there's no way I could find interesting images in a royalty-free stock photo that would really capture the essence of who I am. But I present you this. I think this kind of has it all here. This is a royalty-free stock photo I found. I think it captures what many of us might be about pretty accurately. And if it doesn't, that's good. You're probably living a very healthy lifestyle. And I know you're saying like, all right, but how do I get those little icons, those little pictures? Well, for that, if you haven't heard of it, there's this great website called the Noun Project. And most of the time, if you hire consultants externally to make your slides good, what they're doing is they're going to this site, they're searching for icons, and they're putting them next to words. This site kind of has everything. It's about $30 or so a year for a subscription, and you can get all of the images for free. However, we're all hackers. I'm sure we could find the very easy way to take these images for free if we so wanted to. So, act accordingly. Wow, right? This is also, I'm not really sure the difference between Owen Wilson and Matthew McConaughey, so don't judge me. Also, to illustrate the power of Noun Project, this slide was made completely using icons from Noun Project on a blank black screen as part of my corporate slide template. So I hope with these secrets, you now are all feeling that you don't have to just do this. You don't have to limit yourself to title and bullet points. It's boring, because right now, most of you are probably reading the slide instead of listening to me. So, all right, no more. Let's talk about how to influence without authority. But first, maybe what this actually is. In the corporate world, and actually probably this applies to a lot of our bug bounty researchers out there, where you want someone to think something, to do something, to agree with you, right? One of the ways that doesn't work well is just trying to argue at them, right? We are all biased in our innate versions of reality constructed by what we see, what we've experienced, what we know to be true. If we try and impose our version of reality on someone else and try to convince them to think different, but to convince them that reality is different, it is not going to work well. So influencing without authority comes into play in the corporate world a lot, because you often, you're not the boss of everyone. Even if you're a CEO, you're not going to be the boss of everyone. So you're going to need other people to kind of agree with you. Sometimes they're going to be more senior than you. Sometimes they might be your peers. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to write things down. For some reason, when we talk to people face to face, especially when it's a peer or a boss or something, trying to convince them with just our words is for some reason very difficult. If you want to write out kind of either a proposal for something, a problem statement. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But documenting things is very useful. So one of the ways I've been able to create a red team or create kind of hybrid weird job roles or functions wherever I've gone is by writing out team charters. And but merely by giving it a title, describing what a person's going to do in the future, somehow that then allows me to create that job, even if that job doesn't exist, even if it's not a normal thing. Writing it out kind of makes it official. Other people read it because they're receiving it in a written format. It feels more official rather than just me explaining it to them. So let's talk about making a proposal, because at some point you're going to want to propose something, and you want this to be impactful. You don't want this to be an argument. So one of the psychology tricks I really like to use here is giving people 3 options. Now, in order to get someone to pick the option I want, right, there is a trick that for some reason, when we have 2 options that are similar, but one of them is slightly not as good, it then makes that option that is better seem better than the option that is not so good, but also seem better than other options presented. Having that ability to compare 2 options. So if I present you 3 options, I'm going to give you option 1, a solution, right? It's probably an okay solution, but it's not what I really want you to pick. I'm going to give you option 2. That's going to be a solution that I think is really the one I want you to pick. And then I'm going to give you option 3, which is a version of option 2, very similar, but for some reason just slightly worse in some way. And the presence of option 3 is going to make you favor option 2 over option 1. And of course, you're not going to pick the very shitty one. Most people won't do that. So this is a trick when presenting 3 options to get people to pick the one you want. And you're like, wow, right? So let's talk about some other ways to influence people. Showing data, something we say very frequently. Everyone thinks they're great at showing data, myself included as a victim of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where I'm like, I made a chart in Excel, like I'm awesome at this. I've learned a few things over the years about showing data. One is there's different types of metrics and data, and you want to be really careful in what you're trying to achieve with the data. If you want people to think that you are great, then you're showing kind of performance metrics on yourself, right? That does things like how many bugs you found, how many of this thing you wanted to change, and a good way to do that is showing it over time, changes over time, because then people can see that before you started your effort, the state was something, and then after you started your effort, it was something else, right? And that metric it's a good, useful data point if you want people to think that you're good. But people thinking that you are good at something doesn't actually accomplish much. So when I want to change people's behavior, just showing them the impact that I made, it's nice, it's good for me, it helps them trust me, but it doesn't make them want to do something different. So by adding passive comparison and competition to things, this is how you can, if you have a group of people and you want them to compete, the easiest way to do that is to show them how they rank against each other. You don't have to rank them. You don't have to say number 1, number 2. It doesn't have to be a competition. But if you show them data about their performance and how they rank against each other, this probably happens to a lot of you in the bug bounty world. You want people to compete, you show them how they compare to each other, right? And I do this when I want to get things like internal initiatives adopted, but you can probably use this in lots of different places. Like for instance, I want people to use a password manager inside our corporation. This isn't real data, but I show all of the leaders across the organization, I show them how much they have as a percentage of their group and how they compare to their other folks. Also, you want to use something called social proof. And this idea centers around having the feeling that other people are doing the thing that you want to happen. So if I want people to use a password manager, I should show people that other people are using the password manager, which can be a little counterintuitive when I'm also showing people that they're not. So I want to find some way to call out people who are doing the right thing, to give them recognition, so that peers see this is achievable, this is possible, and they also know kind of deep down in their hearts and souls that people are doing this, and I'm not going to be weird if I do it too. So all over the place here. going to talk about empire building. Now, this would normally be the point at which I'm like, who's heard this word before? But we don't have that luxury today. So I'm just going to assume that maybe some of you have heard this. I'm also going to assume that probably it's never really used in a positive context. When people say, oh, they're an empire builder, it's kind of a bad thing normally in the corporate world. And what it means, if you're not familiar with it, is that people's, like an employee or a manager or a leader in an organization, their sole kind of metric that they measure themselves by, their values, it's all around making the size of the people or the organization or the budget or the thing they control bigger. It's all about size. How many direct reports do I have? How many people in my org, right? And the reason this is a bad thing is because if you only measure yourself by the size of things and not by the outcomes you achieve, you are often doing a large disservice to a large number of people within your organization. It doesn't matter if you actually deliver anything, that's no good. So maybe this applies to us in lots of different ways, but it's not about the size, the number. Those things can help, but really what we should focus on is outcomes. What is the impact we make in the world? What is the impact our team can achieve? What is the impact our group can achieve? So I want to talk to you about OKRs. This is the most boring kind of topic that might be out there, right? And if you haven't been in the corporate Silicon Valley space, maybe you've never even heard of this, and it's okay. But OKR, it stands for Objective and Key Result. It's a way of making metrics. It's very popular at Google. The point here isn't about OKRs, and I'm not going to try and explain them or say why they're good or why they're bad or anything like that. That's not important. What I want to tell you about is a small story. I had no clue what an OKR is, and I heard it, in my career at different times. People were like OKRs, and I was just like, Objective Key Result, cool. Like, I know what that is. That seems obvious. So I started using it and saying like, oh, I'm setting my OKRs, doing my OKRs, and that's what 90% of people in the corporate space are doing. I switched jobs, and I saw like people really were into OKRs again, and I thought, you know what? I shouldn't just assume that I know what this means. And I'm seeing everyone else doing this. I'm going to go actually read the fucking manual. There's a book on OKRs. So in this case, I went to a manager's meeting, and they were talking about OKRs, and everyone was arguing about what they are, what makes them good, what makes them bad. And I thought, fuck, like, I really don't know what makes it good or what makes it bad. So I went and I got the book and I read the book. And since doing that, I found out that no one knows what they're actually talking about, because no one does this. There's like 3 people in an organization of 200 that actually went to read the book, but everyone pretends like they know. So it is going to make you feel a lot easier if you're able to identify these things you don't know, and you just go read a book, watch a tutorial, watch a video, keep learning, right? And I think I probably don't need to say that to most of you, because you're a group of people who are always learning, but just, never get complacent in where you are, and never think that because you've achieved something that you're done learning, and never think that certain topics are too boring to learn, because it's those boring things when combined with the very cool, technical, powerful things that end up making us kind of capable of more. So this is probably interesting to most bug bounty folks, because you have no idea how this works on the inside, maybe. And but it's relevant to all of you, because without a budget, a bug bounty program doesn't really go anywhere, right? Without a budget, a security program doesn't really go anywhere. And there's some interesting things about budgets. I think most people think that you kind of snap your fingers and then poof, there's more. In most companies, though, budgets come on a cycle, right? They're normally tied to quarters. Sometimes it's the fiscal year, sometimes it's some other shifted date for God knows why, but they come in cycles, right? And if you know what this cycle is, you can time your asks to be a bit better. When I was first starting out, and we were building Red Team for the first time, there wasn't a big budget to go build Red Team. So we had this idea that we always kept in mind, because what will happen is at the beginning of a quarter, people would say they're going to spend all this money, ask for all this budget. The budget would get allocated to all the normal, regular things. Then as the quarter goes on, people kind of like always overestimate and they suck at executing on things sometimes. So what ends up happening is you get towards the end of a quarter and there's a bunch of money left over. So the idea of a shovel-ready project is you have a project, your proposal, everything all written up, so that when someone else fails, you can swoop in and take their budget. This is this idea. This is how red teams got built. This is how like big security engagement teams get built. This is how I end up with a team of 12 red teamers and not just 1 or 2 people on a team. It's by having this ready so that when other people fail, we can swoop in to say, like, we need to spend the budget, right? We got something for you. We're going to start a vulnerability research team. We're going to start a behavioral engineering team. We're going to hire someone to do branding for our security team. We're going to throw a party in Vegas. Oh, the party in Vegas is often a shovel-ready project. So you're saying, okay, yeah, all right. This is a Pope, Lil John, all the things. So climbing the corporate ladder is kind of a shit thing, right? And it's something that we often think that if we just show up and we work and we do our job, that will result in some form of success. And it actually doesn't work like that, right? Like, being in a corporation is a skill. Being a manager is a skill. And all of these are separate skills from the technical hacking stuff that we do. Like post-exploitation, and it is something that I like I'm really passionate about. And I learned a lot about this. I'm like, damn, like if I land on your Mac, like the keys to the kingdom are mine. Like I've got this stuff. But then I became a manager and I was like, cool, now I can lead other people just because I'm good at this thing. So it doesn't work like that. You don't stay the best at anything for very long. And if you want to be able to lead others, you want to build teams, you want to build companies, whatever it is that you want to do, you should go seek that knowledge. If you want to learn how to climb the corporate ladder, like what you should be doing, I found this book useful, The Manager's Path. It just tells you about what you should be doing at each level of an organization. And speaking of levels, if you actually want to, if you're in a career somewhere, anywhere, and you're in a corporate structure, your company probably has something called a leveling guide. This is the greatest hack in getting a promotion, right? Just doing your job, like it's never gonna, like maybe every once in a while someone's gonna drop off this gift, but like that is not how you move forward. The leveling guide is normally a set of criteria written fairly vaguely inside an organization that says what is expected at each level. And so you should figure out where you are on this leveling guide, and you should read what the next level up says that you're supposed to be doing. And then you should start to map back all of the things you do to that, right? Read it all the time and say, like, am I doing this new thing? Is my scope like this is described? You should use this in your conversations with your manager, right? You can't just go and ask for a promotion because you've done good without informing yourself like what the next level is. Because like most companies want someone who is going to perform really well and stay exactly in the role that they are, right? That's perfect. You know, you're doing really great at this thing. Why would we give you more responsibility? So if you ever want more responsibility, you want to go up a level in your job or in your career, find the leveling guide, figure out where it says you are, figure out where it says you need to be. Another thing, I guess, to note if you're curious, well, I guess I have you as a captive audience, so it doesn't really matter if you're curious. Another thing, promotions, like budget, they come in cycles. It is something that is limited, right? I think most people don't realize, but in large corporations, what happens and the way promotions work is folks get in like a room all together and they have a big list of people and there's a certain amount of budget, and then they try and rank all the people in a big, long list of order. And then at some point, you know, there's peer reviews that go into it, and there's reviews, but at the end of the day, it ends up being a ranking, and there's a line drawn somewhere, and people above the line get promoted, people below, well, there's not enough budget to do it, so they can't. So if you want to be above the line, just doing your job is normally enough. So politics, a dirty word most of the time, right? politics and security are very interesting, to say the least, because we are operating in an environment where our industry is driven by our opinion on how to achieve something that is very unachievable, right? There is no secure, there is no insecure. These are opinions. These are opinions about how we feel and how the things we have done measure up to what we expect might happen. Now, politics get nasty here because when there is not really an objective way to have security or not have security in most cases, a lot of times it becomes about convincing people things, convincing people that a certain activity is valuable. So one of the things I learned very early on is this idea of political capital. You should think of your political capital like a pile of money, bank vault, a certain amount of stuff in it. And this applies in life, in the world, in bug bounty, in corporate environments. You have political capital. Whenever you do something that other people don't agree with, don't like, or it takes their time or it takes their energy, you're spending that political capital. So whenever you decide, like, you know, I'm not okay with the state of the world, I'm going to try and force it to be something else. You know, I'm not okay with the status of my bug, like it got rejected, or I think it should be a higher criticality. You are spending political capital whenever you argue for it to be something different. You're spending political capital whenever, you know, you argue for a new job to be created. You're spending political capital whenever you argue for people to stop, you know, using their passwords and putting their passwords in a shared document or something like that. All of these things spend it. Whenever you help someone achieve one of their goals, you're earning political capital. You've made an ally, you've made a friend, someone owes you a favor, someone sees that you've helped their cause, and that kind of increases your bank account. What you don't want to happen is for your account to go to zero or to go to negative. That's how you get fired. What happens is that you will have so many enemies, people will find that your contribution to the group cause is no longer valuable relative to the cost that you exert on everyone else, and a group or a community will excommunicate you, and that's not bad. Or that is bad, sorry. All right. This has been my rant about careers and things and crap like that. A number of books here on the screen that have helped me along the way. I think for security folks, Black Box Thinking should be a must read. It's about how failure, how to think differently about failure and how failure can drive us forward. I'd highly recommend it for anyone who is in a constant state of trying things and failing and trying them again. It's a morale boost. So with that, I'll let you decide who is Owen Wilson and who is Matthew McConaughey.
Wow, that was mind-blowing. Josh, so much insight here. That you collected this over quite a while, right?
About a decade, yeah.
It's so amazing. I screenshotted the last page there because I realized that all these books just needs to go into my collection, and super inspirational. I got the most asked question in the chat that was coming through is that how can you look so cool? Like, how do you become the level of coolness that you carry? Is that a chosen thing? Like, you wake up in the morning and say, "Your Schwartz is cool as fuck. Today I'm going to put on this," or is it something that comes natural?
It's interesting to hear the master of cool asking me about being cool, right? I mean, well, first of all, we have to wear some tinted shades indoors, right? Because those are cruise control for cool, are they not? These are actually my regular glasses. They're just transitions. So, and it's bright outside today.
Yeah, but it looks good. Looks good.
You know, I think you know the truth, which is be yourself. To be yourself, right? Someone very early on in my career gave me a piece of advice in navigating at least like the Bay Area job scene. It was, don't try and be what people want you to be. You will then become generic and just like everyone else. Find something you care about, try and get very good at it, and don't give a fuck about anything else.
That's so
That's
cool.
awesome.
Do you mind stop sharing your slides a bit so we can see you, because the stream hasn't been able to just fall in love with that smile. So there he is, the one and only Josh. So I got another question for you, and I kind of know the answer for this too, but it's a cool thing. That it's a question that I at least need to ask. When it comes to, a lot of things that you talked about, it's about social, how to behave in the social environment, but using that with a hacker's mentality, a little bit of social engineering and how to fit in and understand how the corporate world works. But if you're an introvert, let's say that you're not comfortable being around people, maybe you have a little bit of social anxiety, what would be your ideal tips? Let's say somebody on your team needed that kind of, like they're doing a talk, they're feeling uncertain. What would be your giveaway for that?
Right. It feels kind of disingenuous for me to give introverts tips, but I think it comes down to presentation, right? If we think of introversion and extroversion, sort of like how our batteries get charged based on interaction, right? So like I'm interacting with other people right now. After this, I'm gonna have a lot more energy, right? For an introvert, you interact with a bunch of people. Afterwards, you've got a lot less energy. So I think it comes down to managing those interactions. And one of the ways, I think it applies equally to both, like extrovert, introvert, but like the preparation that goes into an interaction, right? So that you can present yourself in a confident way, so that you know what you're going to say, right? That way, and then to limit the amount of interaction that you get afterwards. Because presenting in a meeting, we all get nervous, extroverted, introverted, we all get shy. The cure for that nervousness is preparation, right? To take time. If it's something that's new for us, trying to get, like, we all have our kind of close group of trusted people, right? Let's take the things that we create and kind of run it by them and get feedback, so that we're not putting ourselves out there for the first time when it really matters, or when we think, like, when we're really nervous, right? So that we can feel confident, so that we can feel prepared. That, and taking time to be by ourselves.
Actually, that's the thing. Even I, as a super extrovert, just need that after conference. I need to go to the hotel room, just relax a bit, because it's draining, whatever you do. So that's an interesting thing. So lastly, this is a question that doesn't really have to do with the talk, but you talked about the shovel ready project. Those laser guns at DEF CON, were they all prepared for the party? Like, were those in your ready to slide in? It's time to have a mayhem.
I mean, the whole party was a shovel ready project, right? So, the truth behind that is we wanted to create an event that made us proud to be where we worked, and the hope was that other people would be interested to come work with us. So I went and got the budget for my team, and they executed on all the great stuff that was there. So I wish I could take credit for all the fun things, but it's not just me. It's a group of amazing creative people trying to get out there in the world and showcase themselves, and just like we're all doing here, right?
That's awesome. Hey, so there's one that's come in from the chat. It's a bit tongue in cheek, but I think it's actually kind of clever as well. It's like, do you think you can social engineer your peers now that they've watched this talk? Which is like, but
this talk is how I social engineer my peers.
There you go. Okay, cool. So it's a judo move. No, yeah, the thing that I thought interesting about that is like these sort of techniques and this idea of navigating. How much do you sort of see, or how much have you felt, because clearly you're comfortable sharing it now, but how much have you maybe felt in the past that it's like your special sauce that you need to just use and potentially keep to yourself, or that whole kind of thing?
Oh no, I've always found the most value in sharing things, and it sounds like those, like a canned response. Oh, it's great to share, but really, when you don't share stuff, the world becomes very annoying, because you know things and you feel things to be true. If you don't share it, you have no way to test that, right? You just continue on with your version of reality, thinking everything you think is right is true. So you don't get any feedback, you don't learn, you don't grow if you don't share your stuff. But it's also very annoying that that you feel like you need to step in to do these things, and you're the only one. Like I don't want to be the only one, right? I want companions in this world. So I'm going to share my stuff so I can get feedback. The selfish reason, and then the second selfish reason is like the more people who kind of know this, if more people make better slides and use the same tricks, then I will get to watch more slides that I like. So I never find them.
As someone who presents a bit and thought I had a good slide deck, I feel like you would watch a lot of talks and be like, I could do that better. You nailed it. To sum it up, wow, as you put it.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my follow-up question is, can we have your slides, please, so that we can reuse them and also read them back, but mostly reuse them also.
Sure. I think I sent them in last night at 11 p.m.
I was asking on behalf of the crew, partly tongue-in-cheek as well. But yeah, that whole visual communication piece, like you do an amazing job of that just in your own slides. But I think the way that you actually walk through that and explain why it's important was really powerful to hear that unpacked as well.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome, Fuzzy. Hey, there's one more question, and I'm kind of interested to hear this one too. And I feel like I've struggled with it myself. Definitely working as a pen tester. It's from OX Atul. I'm probably butchering the name, but he's very active on our Discord and everything, and lovely guy. And he said, being a hacker and being a corporate person are opposite sides of the spectrum. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a slightly dangerous assumption to say that two things are opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Because if we think like that, then it limits us to be one or the other. And if we are limited by that, then it's not manageable. We can only be one or the other. And this idea that we are a hacker, like it's not something we're going to give up ever, right? And if we think that they are opposite sides of the spectrum, then we're never going to be able to be like a corporate person too. I mean, I think the presentation is my way of saying the way to manage that is to be like a chameleon, right? To stay who you are, but blend into your environment when you need to, just like any other skill, just like blending into a Windows environment after you've cracked that perimeter, or blending into an environment and looking like the other things that are in the environment, just to get something done. So yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, awesome. I totally agree with that. I guess while I understand where he's coming from with that question, these days being a hacker and getting paid to do it is a consulting job a lot of the time, and I think soft skills are a huge part of that. And I think that's what you touched on, like in this talk, is like having people skills is almost as important or even more important than being able to hack if you're getting paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all striving to be kind of complete, right? And we all want to have kind of all of the different skills and all of the different things so that we can do anything we want, right? And live that kind of limitless lifestyle in which we are able to go. We don't feel like parts of the world or things are cut off from us. So, I mean, it's hard. I'll spend my whole life trying to do it, and I encourage, or I hope some of you do as well.
Yeah. Hey, just another personal question from me. I love all of the content that you gave about basically like hacking people, to put it bluntly. But you mentioned a few books and things like that have obviously inspired you to think this way. But when you're just dealing with people day to day, is that something that you're consciously thinking about? Like, are you thinking, oh, this is that situation that I read about in a book, and like, I'm going to apply this technique? Or is it more something that you feel you've kind of developed as instinctual over the years?
So instincts only come with lots and lots of practice, right? And so what I do is I will decide what I want to like work on, right? And then I will find an audio book that like is in that genre or category or that thing that I want to work on. And then like on my way to work or as I'm starting the day, I'll listen to a little bit of it, and I'll have like some fresh stuff in my mind, and then I can hopefully like practice those things throughout the day. And that's kind of, I just use it to like shift my mind state into a different place. But I'm not able to like go back and recall pieces of the book, or I'm always thinking about that. That's how I do it.
Yeah, awesome. Another question from I think from the community. You mentioned that you got fired before your current gig, and someone has asked, what techniques did you use to deal with and overcome that? So yeah, love to hear that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to talk about the techniques to overcome it, I have to talk a little bit about what it's like. And you know, it's kind of blindsiding, right? So a big part of what happens is you have to justify to yourself that you're still adequate, you're still okay, right? And you have to try and think like, how is this failure going to move me forward? And that's not an easy thing to do when you have this failure still in front of you. So for me, it just became about focusing on the future, right? And I don't think I really got over it until I was able to prove to myself that like the first time around wasn't a fluke, and that I belong here. I mean, I feel like we all feel this way, you know, a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, do we really belong? Was it just luck? And I think accepting that in part it's luck, right? I mean, some of it is luck. We have to have some luck to get to where we're going. We have to have luck for opportunities to open up. But we can influence that amount of luck by trying and not being afraid to fail over and over again. And hopefully we get some kind of proof that allows us to feel better about ourselves in the end. So.
Yeah, I love that so much. And like, you know, the luck thing, I think like most of life comes down to luck in some ways, in that like we're lucky to be alive at all. We're lucky to exist. And like, we're lucky to have had the experiences that have led us into this career path. We're lucky to have, you know, happen to be born in the country that we're born in, to get the job that we get. You know, all of these different things line up for us to be in the exact position and the exact time and everything that we're in right now. Like, just the chances of us being alive are unimaginably small. So like, you know, when you're talking about getting into a specific career, that's like the next level, right? That's like completely next level. All right. Do you mind if I give you another question just from the audience?
Sure.
So this is an interesting one. It's kind of open-ended, but I like it for some reason. So it's from Galactic Omelette, which is an excellent handle, I must say. Would you say that managing and hacking others is just as much about managing and hacking yourself?
Yeah. I think that's a great quote. And, you know, if we are blind to ourselves, we will never be able to see the things we need to in others. And if we cannot manage ourselves, yeah, 100% agree.
That's an awesome question.
Casey. Yeah, so there's another one here. Sorry, I'm reading it as is. So the grammar might be a little bit off or whatever. But what happens when you can stand politics and is always fighting for mediocrity in a corporate world that is always moved by politics and game? Can you comment on that? So I think what they're saying is like, we're living in a world where basically mediocrity in the corporate world is like, you know, the go-to standard. And definitely like not so much not so much businesses I've worked for, but definitely like businesses that I've been planted in as part of my work. I've found that like mediocrity is like the default for most people. They just want to turn up to work. They just want to like do their job and whatever. How do you fight that? How do you get around that? How do you inspire people to like do better? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this very much comes down to acceptance, right? Because we, you know, perhaps we are critical and we judge ourselves to a very high level. That's how we push ourselves, and we turn that lens on other people too, right? And it's easy to look out across the vast swath of different people and just to say, oh, like I'm living in this world of institutionalized corporate mediocrity and everyone sucks and everyone's bland and blah, 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 right? But like the thing I find that helps is to say like, you know what, everyone's doing their best. Everyone's doing their best and they have their own things that they care about. And it's not my place to try and change their priorities or what they care about, but rather to like align myself to the things that I care about and do those things, despite of what, just like, basically you rely on people to do their best. And if you can measure what that best is, then you can realign your expectations with the reality of your peers or companies or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I guess
have lower expectations. Yeah.
I'm also just, this chat was like, we're just waiting for Casey to drop some knowledge in here too, having similar to yourself. You've got very similar approaches to this, like business and experience and blending the hacker side to the business side. And I know I get a lot of knowledge from that, having transitioned from pen tester to leading on Casey a bit to help me transition to a management role. Casey, what's your take on the talk? What do you think?
Oh, look, you know, A+++ would listen to Josh again as expected. No, but look, I mean, on the topic, I don't want to hijack the talk by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, thoroughly agree. Like I often explain, like even entrepreneurship and founding as using a similar set of skills and a similar set of kind of, you know, components of like just how people think. You know, you start here, you want to end here, you've got this limited set of things to work with and you got all this shit in your way and your job is to create a path from A to B. It's similar, you know, I think in terms of like exploiting in the positive sense, a corporate culture to be able to get the outcomes that you think are best as it is, you know, creating a new category in the market. So, and, you know, like the big thing Josh was just saying, Josh, you were just saying now is the whole, like, I think hackers just in general, there's this strong undertone of like anti-establishment. It's like, everything, because, you know, a lot of what we do is about what's broken, right? So it sort of makes sense that that's part of how we communicate and it's part of our DNA. And it's a powerful and a good thing. But, yeah, definitely in my experience, going from, you know, this enthusiastic kind of rookie who saw an opportunity to change a bunch of stuff to learning how to actually do that. It's some of the most dense and challenging learning that I've had to do. And to Josh's talk, like sometimes it involves, actually all the time really, it's this like continuous stream of things that feel very unnatural. It's like, this is not what I normally do. I normally just like headbutt this thing because that solution is stupid and my one is good, or, you know, like those sorts of things that I think are just innate to people that have, you know, opinions in this space, which is probably most of us, right? So yeah, I mean, not to, you know, ramble on about it too much longer, but like I think it just straight down the line. And I think really what I liked about this talk is that it's obviously in the corporate industrial complex, but really it's a talk about professionalism. It's a talk really about growing up and actually increasing your impact. I tweeted a quote that you put in there, Josh, about, you know, if we can take like in increments these sort of more boring or mundane or unnatural feeling things and combine them with these like very powerful technical superpowers that we've got, then we're capable of more impact with that. And like, I'm personally motivated by the pursuit of potential. So that's sort of how I got to where I am here, and, you know, very much intend to keep on going with that. So yeah, I love the talk.
Thanks.
I got a last question though, maybe, or maybe we got a couple of them, but my question is primarily, all these skills that comes from, like you're with Verizon Media, that's a big corporation. There's big room for you to evolve. But let's say that you're in a corporation and you're feeling that you're getting stuck, like you're leveling out. When do you personally think it's a time to jump ship, or like when do you reach the level of comfort versus that hunger to develop or grow as a person? Do you have any tips for anyone that feels stuck in that area?
Sure. I mean, to jump ship, I think often we think it means to like quit the company, to quit the job, right? And But in essence, when we feel like that's our only choice, we're a little bit trapped, right? Like, oh, my only choice is to quit. And I think we shouldn't think about it like quitting out, right? But rather just pursuing the things that are interesting to us. And we should be able to ask ourselves, like, what is the thing I really want to be doing? Like, what is essential to my life that I want to occupy my time with, and am I doing that? And if you're not doing that, you can look for ways to do it in the job you have. You can look for opportunities to do it elsewhere. So really, it's about being able to pursue the things that you care about. And if you're not able to do that, and you can't find any place in the current environment, then maybe it's time to look elsewhere. But don't leave just because you feel stuck, right? Look for that option inside, look for it elsewhere, but leave because you're pursuing something, not because you're kind of like backing away.
There's a brilliant phrase that I picked up from a mentor a long time ago. It's like, it's easy to be defined by what you're against. But there's power, and there's skill, and there's actually opportunity in learning how to be defined what you're for, which is kind of packages up a little bit of what you just said. Hard agree on that. I think that's awesome.
Okay, cool. So thank you very much, Josh, for having that amazing talks for us. And I hope all of you made sure that you screen captured as much as possible if you're ready to move into the corporate world.